Very good morning, students. So, we are starting with the last part that is left in this module 1, the concept of thermodynamics, different laws of thermodynamics, and formation of steam. So, we have already completed the first part in the module 1, that is energy sources, different forms of energy, solar energy, wind energy, hydraulic energy, nuclear energy, and also we have completed environmental issues of global warming, the causes and effects of global warming, and also depletion in ozone layer, causes and effects. Right, so we have finished the first part of that. So today we will complete the entire syllabus, that is whatever portions is left out in thermodynamics and formation of steam, we will finish it in today's class. With that, we complete the entire syllabus. Okay. All right. So starting with thermodynamics. So thermodynamics is derived from the Greek terms therme and dynamic, which means heat. Therme means heat and dynamic means power. So it's basically a branch of physics that studies the effects in change in temperature, pressure and volume on physical system at a macroscopic scale. So thermodynamics means basically study of heat, okay, or where there is involvement of heat which can be converted into work. Okay, so basically we are talking about heat engines and heat pumps, two things. So heat has to be transferred from higher region to a lower region naturally, and if heat is available, whatever heat is available, and if we can convert that into work, then it is called as a heat engine. And in case you are giving the work to that particular device, and if it is able to transfer heat from lower temperature to higher temperature, it's called as a heat pump. Okay, anyways, we'll see that later. So now we will see what do you mean by thermodynamic state. So thermodynamic state is when all the properties of a system have definite values, then the system is said to have a definite state. That means a particular system which has different properties such as pressure, temperature, volume, etc. If it has a specific values at a particular point, then that is called as the state of that particular system. For example, there is a system which is having, let's say, P1 as its pressure, V1 as its volume, and T1 as its temperature. So at that point, it is called as the state of the system. So it is at pressure P1, volume V1, and temperature T1. Now, if there is a process that is taking place, and if this P1, V1 and T1 values will change to some other value, let's say it will change to P2, V2 and T2. Not necessarily all of them, but let's assume that it was P1, V1 and T1 initially. Pressure P1, volume was V1, temperature was T1. And let's say then it changes to P2, V2 and T2. Then there is called as a change in state. Okay, so change of system is an operation in which one or more properties of a system changes. Okay, so where, as I told you, where either only the pressure can change, or volume or temperature, or more than that also can change. All of them also can change. But so whenever there is a change in one or more properties of a system, then we call that as change of state. Okay, so simple example is, let's say we heat an object. So what will happen to that? If there is water and we start heating it, then what will happen? After some point of time, its temperature has changed, its pressure would have changed, its volume also would have changed, isn't it? So then we can call as change in system. So initially it would have a different temperature, a different volume and a different pressure. But after you supply heat to that, its pressure, volume and temperature will change. Then that is called as change of state. So it has moved from state 1 to state 2. Okay. So next one is path. So path is the complete series of states through which the system passes during the change from one state to another state. So I hope you understand. For example, from point 1 or path from state 1, as I was giving an example of heating the water. So state 1 will be at room temperature and pressure and certain volume. So when you go to state 2, your pressure changes, temperature changes and volume has changed. Right, that is second state. So state 1 was different, state 2 was different, and then from change from 1 to 2 is called as change of state. Now the series of states through which the system passes during state from one state to another state, that means in between that how many changes that has occurred, that is called as the path. Understand? So temperature was T1, then the temperature has become T2. So going from T1 to T2, how many intermediate temperatures or how many intermediate pressure values it has changed. So if you take that particular line, then that is called as a path from 1 to 2. It can be a straight line, it can be a curve, okay, or it can be a upward curve or a downward curve. So it depends on how the temperature and pressure values have changed. So that is called as a path from state 1 to state 2. What is the path in which it has traveled? Next one is process. So when the path followed by the system during change from one equilibrium state to another equilibrium state is completely specified, then that is called as a process. Got it? So when a path that is followed by a system during state 1 to state 2, if they are completely specified, in between that all the points are specified, that is called as a process. So next one is called as concept of work and heat. So what is work? So work, as you can see, is mathematically defined as integral of P dV. It's called as P dV. So what is P and what is dV? P is the pressure, dV is the change in volume, difference in volume. Definitely, if from volume that is changed from V1 to V2 between the process 1 to 2. Okay, work is defined for the process 1 to state 1 to state 2. Then the product of pressure into change in volume is defined as work. And what is the unit of work? Unit of work is usually joules or Newton meter. Okay, unit of work is joules or Newton meter. So I need not explain why it is Newton meter and all that, but still just for your understanding I will explain what is pressure. Pressure is Newton per meter square, isn't it? Pressure is what? Force per area. So pressure is force unit is Newton, area unit is meter square. So it is Newton per meter square into volume. What is volume? Meter cube. So Newton per meter square into meter cube. So what will happen? Meter square and meter cube, if you cancel, meter cube square will cancel, 1 meter will remain. So the unit will become Newton meter, or it is called as joules. Okay, next is what is heat. Heat is a form of energy, as you all know. It's a mode of energy transfer that takes place between the system and the surroundings solely due to the temperature difference. Got it? So heat is a mode of heat transfer that is taking place between a system and surroundings only because of temperature difference. Then we can say that heat is transferred. That means if an object is there at say 100 degrees, and if there is another object or the surroundings is there at say 50 degrees, then heat will be transferred from 100 degree temperature body to the surroundings which is at 50 degrees. So heat of the first object, temperature of the first object will reduce, temperature of the second object will increase. Then we can say that heat has transferred from one place to another, that is from system to surroundings. There are different modes of heat transfer. One is called conduction, second one is convection, and third one is called as radiation. So we need not study in depth about the modes of heat transfer. Conduction means between solid objects, convection means from one solid to a liquid, and radiation, an example for radiation is from the sun without any medium, that is from sun. Whatever energy heat is being received on the earth is an example for radiation. Okay. Next one is comparison of work and heat. What do you mean by work and what do you mean by heat? We have already seen the definitions of work and heat. So what are the similarities of work and heat and what are the differences between work and heat? The similarities are both are path functions. I've explained what is a path, right? So both of them are path functions. Both are boundary phenomenon. Both are associated with the process and not the state. Systems possess energy, but work or heat do not possess any energy. Okay. Next is dissimilarities. In heat transfer, temperature difference is required. Okay, for a heat transfer, temperature difference is required. In a stable system, there cannot be work transfer. However, there is no restriction for transfer of heat. That means in a system, there may not be work transfer. Work may not be transferred, but heat can be transferred. Third one, heat is a low grade energy while work is considered as high grade energy. Transfer of heat is considered as low grade and work is considered to be as high grade energy. Okay, next coming into the laws of thermodynamics. There are basically 4 laws. The first one is called the zeroth law. Then there is first law of thermodynamics, then second law of thermodynamics and third law of thermodynamics. So we will see individually what do you mean by these laws, what are the statements and what do they mean. So all the heat engines or all the thermal related devices or engines will work under these laws. So first one is zeroth law, and there is something interesting about this zeroth law. So why is it called zeroth law? Why not we have first law directly? Isn't it? So most of the laws, if you see in laws of motion, Newton's laws of motion, we have Newton's law of motion starting from first law and then second law and so on, right? So we don't have a zeroth law anywhere. If you generally say any of these laws. So why we have zeroth law in the case of thermodynamics? It's because the first law was framed already. Okay, the first law of thermodynamics was framed, it was published and it was known to all over the world. Then they had second law, and then they realized there is this law which they have understood it later, and they felt that this should have been the basis for all these things. We should have defined this first. This should have been the first law, not third law. They thought that this is most fundamental and this should have been done first. But since first law and second law was already framed, so it was not possible to replace this as a first law because first law has already been done. So what they thought is that before first law, if I have to put something, then we have to put this as zeroth law. And that's why the name is called as zeroth law of thermodynamics. Okay. So what does it say? Why is it so fundamental? So we'll see that. It states that when two bodies have equality of temperature with the third body, they in turn have equality of temperature with each other. Or when a body A is in thermal equilibrium with body B and also separately with body C, then B and C also will be in thermal equilibrium with each other. So as per the sketch here, you can see it's very simple to understand. Let's say there are 3 bodies here, A, B and C. Now let us say that body A and body B are in thermal equilibrium with each other. Okay, body A and body B are in thermal equilibrium with each other, and body A and body C are also in thermal equilibrium with each other. A and B are in equilibrium with each other, A and C are in equilibrium with each other. So it is understood that B and C are also will be in thermal equilibrium with each other. If A is in equilibrium with B and if A is in equilibrium with C, that means that B and C are also in thermal equilibrium with each other. Okay. Or let's say A is in equilibrium with B and B is in equilibrium with C, that means A and C are in thermal equilibrium with each other. So that is what they are saying. So this is the zeroth law of thermodynamics. It states that when two bodies have equality of temperature with the third body, they in turn will have equality of temperature with each other. Okay, I hope it's not that difficult to understand. Okay, so A and B are in equilibrium with each other, that is known. B and C are in equilibrium with each other, that is also known, but we don't know the relation between A and C. But when A and B are in equilibrium with each other and B and C are also in equilibrium with each other, it is understood that A and C also will be in equilibrium with each other. That is what the statement says. Okay. So that was zeroth law. So next we have to see the first law of thermodynamics. So the first law of thermodynamics is often called as law of conservation of energy. Okay, it's also called as law of conservation of energy. It states when a system undergoes a thermodynamic cyclic process, the net heat supplied to the system from the surroundings is equal to the net work done by the system on its surroundings. So what does it say? In other words, if this is the statement, when a system undergoes a thermodynamic cyclic process, when the net heat supplied to the system from the surroundings should be equal to the net work done by the system on the surroundings. So that's why it's called as law of conservation of energy. That means, in other words, if I'm putting this statement, it means that no energy can go wasted. Right. So what it says is that whatever input you are putting into the system, that will be transferred as work to the output by some means. Okay, that means in simple terms, you cannot create energy nor you can destroy energy, but it would be transferred from one form to other form. Maybe it's useful or it may go as a useless energy, but there will be some form of energy transfer that will take place, and you cannot say I am giving some amount of energy and that only some amount of energy is coming out and other has gone, it has been destroyed. No, it would have gone in some other form. That's what is being meant here. Okay, so it may be not utilized as a good proper energy. For example, it may be going as a frictional energy, frictional losses, or in form of any other waste, but the energy has been converted into some other form. That's what is the meaning of first law of thermodynamics. Okay, so next is about heat engine, as I've told you earlier. So what do you mean by a heat engine? So heat engine is a system or a device which is operating between two regions, one HTR and other one is LTR. Now what do you mean by HTR? HTR means high temperature region, LTR means low temperature region. Okay, so an engine that is working between a high temperature region and low temperature region, which accepts heat from the high temperature region, converts that into work, is called as a heat engine. Got it? So please understand this very clearly. Heat engine means it will operate between two reservoirs, or high temperature reservoir and low temperature reservoir. It accepts heat from the high temperature reservoir, uses that heat, produces work and gives it out to the surrounding, and whatever portion of the heat that has been not converted into work will be given to the lower temperature reservoir. Okay, so you can see here Q1 is the amount of heat that it receives. It converts some amount of that heat into W, that is work, and the rest of them will be transferred to the low temperature region. That means, in other words, the total amount of heat input was Q, work done is W, and the heat that is left out is transferred to LTR. Okay, so if you see what is work, it is Q1 minus Q2 is equal to W. Okay, so there's an example that is given over here. Okay, so turbine, it receives heat at high temperature, converts that into work, whatever is left out it will send it down. So turbine becomes an example for a heat engine. Okay, now similar to this heat engine, we also have something called as a heat pump. Now what is the difference between heat engine and a heat pump? So you can see it is also a heat device which is again operating between high temperature reservoir and low temperature reservoir, but if we see the difference, it accepts work. Okay, it takes work from outside, so it's a work absorbing device. So you have to supply work to that. It doesn't produce work. So whereas a heat engine is a one where it takes heat, converts into work. So then it's called as an engine. So anything that produces work is called as an engine. So where you are absorbing heat, or where it is absorbing work, or giving it work, it is called as a pump. So in pump, what happens? A heat pump, it will transfer heat from a low temperature reservoir to a high temperature reservoir with the help of external work. Okay, so you have to supply work to this, and it will be able to transfer heat from low temperature reservoir to high temperature reservoir. That's a heat pump. For example, you can take the example of refrigerator in this case. Okay, so you need to supply energy, right? We need to supply energy to the refrigerator. After it receives that energy, and it is possible for that to extract heat from a low temperature and give it out into the atmosphere. That's why you are able to do that in the refrigerator. So it's an example of a heat pump. Okay, so it doesn't produce energy, it takes energy. You have to supply in the form of power, right? So it has absorbing energy, and then it transfer heat from low temperature to higher temperature. Same as in the case of AC also. So you have to supply power to that, only then it is possible to supply heat from low temperature reservoir to high temperature. By nature, it's not possible. Heat will always flow from high temperature region to low temperature region only. If your temperature is at 50 degrees Celsius and there is another a system with that 30 degrees Celsius, then heat will definitely flow from 50 degrees to 30 degrees only. It is impossible for 30 degrees to 50 degrees, not possible. Okay, so that's a heat pump. So this, whatever I explained, is actually the concept of second law of thermodynamics. So there are two classical statements with respect to second law of thermodynamics. Both are extremely important. Okay, so second law of thermodynamics has two statements. Remember that it's not only one, two different statements, and both are called as second law. So the first statement is called the Kelvin-Planck statement, and the second one is called as Clausius statement. Okay, so first we'll see what is Kelvin-Planck statement says. It says, it is impossible to construct an engine which will operate in a cycle, will produce no effect other than the transfer of heat from a single thermal reservoir and the performance of an equal amount of work. Okay, when you read it, probably you find it a little difficult, but it's very simple statement. Read it again, then you'll understand. It is impossible to construct an engine which will operate in a cycle, will produce no effect other than transfer of heat from a single thermal reservoir and the performance of an equal amount of work. So what does it say? It says that you cannot have an engine, right? You cannot have an engine which will operate only under one reservoir. That is, let's say HDR. It takes heat from there and it will have no effect other than producing that entire amount of heat into work. It is impossible. You cannot make a engine like that, which is making whatever heat it is receiving can be converted into work. In very simple terms, if I want to explain, it says that you cannot make an engine which is 100% efficient. That means whatever input you are taking and output is also the same. It's impossible to make such an engine. That is what Kelvin-Planck statement says. That means if you have an engine, it has to operate between two different reservoirs, high temperature reservoir and low temperature reservoir. You take heat Q1, you can convert some part of that into work, and you have to give some part of the heat into the lower temperature reservoir. That means the energy would go as a waste, right? So that means the efficiency will be less than 100% for any engine for that matter. You cannot produce an engine which is 100% efficient. That is impossible. That is what the statement says. I hope you understand. So as you all know, whatever engines we have, none of the engines are 100% efficient. It cannot be also. It's impossible. That's what as per the Kelvin Planck statement. So you cannot make any engine where you take some amount of input, convert that into work at 100%. Okay, that is what the statement is. Second one, Clausius statement. Okay, so Clausius statement says it is impossible to construct a heat pump which is operating in a cycle will produce no effect other than the transfer of heat from a low temperature thermal reservoir to a high temperature thermal reservoir. So this is what I was explaining at that time. I gave an example of heat engine and heat pump, isn't it? Already explained that was actually an explanation for this laws only about heat engine and heat pump. So in the heat pump I have told you it has to receive work from outside and then it can transfer heat from low temperature region to high temperature region, right? So exactly what the statement in Clausius statement says is that it is impossible to construct a heat pump is operating in a cycle which will produce no effect other than the transfer of heat from low temperature reservoir to high thermal reservoir. So that's impossible. You cannot make an heat pump which will extract heat from low temperature reservoir and give it to high temperature. It is not possible. For example, if lower temperature is let's say 50 degrees and high temperature is 100 degrees, it is impossible for a 50 degree reservoir to give its heat to 100 degree and say I will make it 120 and this will become 30. It is impossible to do that. Okay. So that is what Clausius statement says. So how can we do that? We can do it how? By giving external work. Without that it is impossible is what he is saying. So that's about the second law. Next is about third law. The third law of thermodynamics. The third law of thermodynamics states that the entropy of a system approaches a constant value as the temperature reaches absolute zero. The entropy of a system at absolute zero is typically zero and in all cases is determined by the number of different ground state it has. Okay, so this is a concept of entropy. So entropy, first of all, you should know what is entropy. Entropy is usually defined as a randomness in a system. Okay, you cannot properly measure what is entropy. Entropy is called the randomness of the system. So the randomness always will be varying. Okay. So what the third law says is that the entropy of the system will reach a constant value when the temperature reaches absolute zero. Absolute zero means it is 0 Kelvin. That is minus 273 degrees Celsius. So in any normal cases, if you see, the entropy will be varying all the time. It will never be constant. It's called the randomness of the system. So when it will reach constant, when the temperature reaches absolute zero. That means when you can take the system to 0 Kelvin or minus 273 degrees Celsius, at that time the entropy will be constant. That is the meaning of third law. So entropy of the system at absolute zero will be typically zero and in all cases determined by the number of different ground state it has. Okay. Next, concept of internal energy. It is the energy associated with the internal structure of matter or internal energy, and it is defined as the sum of microscopic energies of all the molecules of the system which may appear in several complex forms. Okay, so internal energy means the energy possessed by the system itself, and it can be defined as the sum of all the microscopic energies of the molecules of the system which may appear in several complex forms. Okay, so internal energy, as I told you, it's the energy possessed by the system and it can be called as the sum of the energies possessed by the individual molecules of the system. Okay, so it can be in various forms. These forms may include, first one, intermolecular potential energy associated with the force between the molecules. So these are the forms of internal energy we are talking about. It can be the intermolecular potential energies associated with the force between them, molecular kinetic energy associated with the translation and rotational velocity of molecules, intramolecular energy within the molecular or at atomic structures and related forces. Internal energy is primarily a function of temperature. Okay, so it's basically a function of temperature. That means when there's a change in temperature, the internal energy also will change. Next, enthalpy and entropy, two definitions. You need not know more about these things, but there may be a question on the definition of this. They can say define enthalpy, define entropy, or define state of a system. Okay, so you may have to know the definitions. Anyways, it's all given clearly in the notes, but I'll just go through the definition of enthalpy here. So enthalpy is a mathematical combination of internal energy and pressure energy of the fluid. It is expressed as H. Okay, enthalpy is defined as, is denoted by capital H, and H is equal to U. U is the internal energy, P is the pressure, and V is the volume. So internal energy can be expressed as H is equal to U plus PV. PV is product of pressure and volume. U is the internal energy, and H is equal to internal energy plus PV in extensive, or H is equal to U plus PV in intensive form. The common expression, it's a common expression in SI unit, and it has a unit of kilojoules per kg. Okay, so that is enthalpy. So if definition of enthalpy is asked, or what is enthalpy? H is equal to U plus PV. You need to remember this. Okay, if you want to calculate enthalpy, then you have to use this formula, that is U plus PV. And while explaining that also, you can write the same thing. It is the sum of internal energy plus product of pressure into volume, and the unit of that is kilojoules per kg. Okay, entropy. So entropy is defined as the amount of energy that is not available for work during a certain process. So amount of energy within the system which is not used for work, which is not available for work. So this is what I told you. So entropy is called as a randomness in the system, or it is a measure of disorder in the system. Okay, so system disorder, there's energy what is actually there in the system, but that is not available for any useful work. That is called as entropy. Okay, so these are the things that we are supposed to know with respect to thermodynamics. So you need to know what do you mean by the thermodynamics system, what do you mean by a state of a system, what is mean by a process, what do you mean by work, what do you mean by heat, and the different laws of thermodynamics. What do you mean by zeroth law, first law, second law, third law, and some of these terms, enthalpy, entropy, etc. Okay, so we will stop here now. The continuation of this will be the next part, the final part of that is steam. So in that you have to study the formation of steam, how steam is formed, what are the terms that is involved in that, and some numericals which is with respect to steam. Okay, so with that I'll do that in the next video.